Well, today kicks off a week of pretrial hearings for 5 men accused in orchestrating the attacks on September 11th, 2001. Those men include Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who has called himself the mastermind of the attacks, as well as Ali Abdul Aziz Ali, Mustafa al-Haswai, Walid bin Attash, and Ramzi bin al-Shib. These hearings have been a long time coming, and before they truly get underway, judges must first make decisions about the way the hearings might be conducted and what information that is shared will be made public. That's because prosecutors in the case have asked a U.S. military judge to consider what's known as a protective order, in which a 40-second delay would be implemented so that if, for example, information about enhanced interrogation in secret CIA prisons is revealed, that it could then be censored. Prosecutors cite security as the main reason here, but journalists and others are fighting back. The ACLU calls this proposal by prosecutors both extraordinary and chilling, and it brings up larger questions about truth and transparency in our justice system, and also about potential holes in our nation's history. Joining me now is Colonel Morris Davis, a retired Air Force attorney and a professor at Howard University School of Law. And Colonel Davis, thanks for being on the show today. This is an important day, as we know. These hearings have been a long time in the making. Talk first about this secrecy aspect and your reaction when you heard that prosecutors were asking for this 40-second delay.
Well, the whole reason Guantanamo was selected to begin with was it was out of sight and out of mind and very easy to control and keep the public from understanding and knowing what's taking place there. So this is just a continuation of that policy that's been in place for a decade. But it is unprecedented that, an American court of justice that, we're holding up to the world as our example that this is the process that we're using.
But let's be honest, I mean, some of these enhanced interrogation techniques are indeed classified, right?
But are there any that you can think of that the public hadn't heard about 100 times already? Waterboarding?
I don't know, I probably wouldn't know about it.
Yeah, but waterboarding and all the other things have been discussed dozens and dozens of times. I mean, some of these men have been in our custody for over a decade.
Well, if that's the case, then what do you think prosecutors are so concerned about?
Well, I don't know if it's prosecutors so much as, they're carrying out their orders. I think it's more of a political decision that, I think it says more about what we did to these detainees than what these detainees did to us, because we prosecuted hundreds of people in federal courts with classified information, without a security incident, and quite successfully. So I think these 3 dozen or so that we want to prosecute in a military commission, which is a second-rate process by any definition of the term compared to our federal courts, is really to avoid embarrassment to the U.S. more than it is about these guys being war criminals, that only this forum is appropriate.
Now, as we said, the hearings kicked off today. We've sort of been monitoring them as the day has gone on. Nothing yet, no decision yet has come down, to my knowledge, about this 40-second delay. Talk a little bit about sort of just the process of it. I mean, family members of victims have been invited to sort of see this. Obviously, journalists, defense attorneys even. Talk a little bit about the process, if indeed this is granted, that would make this delay happen, which would make it possible to censor the answers.
Right. Well, it's really a very bizarre process. It's been used before. Really what the defense is asking to do here is to deviate from what has been the process in the past and to allow the public through the media to understand what took place. But it's a very bizarre environment. The spectators are seated behind a glass window where they can see the movement and the animation and the lips moving in the courtroom, but the sound lags 40 seconds or more behind that, and at times is blanked out entirely. So the motions and the words never quite match, which I guess at Guantanamo is appropriate.
Yeah, it is very strange, though, I'm sure, for people who are sitting there trying to keep their eye on this through the glass. Let's take a look back now, Colonel Davis, about how we got here. Of course, this trial has been more than a decade in the making. It's been delayed numerous times. I mean, some of the reasons have included the threat of a hurricane, internet outage, letting these defendants participate in Ramadan, the holy month of Ramadan, but that's just this year. Back in 2008, these 5 appeared before a military commission, but the judicial branch stepped in and demanded that new rules be written for some of the handling of this. I guess just let me get your take on why this has taken so long with all of this.
Well, unfortunately, this probably could have been finished in federal court years ago. In fact, Attorney General Holder not long ago in an interview said he regretted, looking back now, at 2009, when the administration backed off of their plans to have these cases in federal court and gave in to the fearmongers and kept the
Yeah, that was certainly the intention, but then we heard so much. I remember I was covering this. We heard so much about bringing, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed to New York City and hide your children because, this terrorist is going to be in town.
Right. Well, and as Attorney General Holder said, that in hindsight, these cases could have been over and done in a credible way. This is a credit to our country and not an embarrassment, and at less cost. I mean, we're keeping 166 men at Guantanamo at about $160 million a year. There are really about 80 that we intend to keep, and the others we'd like to send home. But if you do the math, that's about $2 million per person per year, where federal prison is about $30,000 a year. So for the fiscal conservatives, this ought to win the Fleece Award for fleecing the taxpayers for wasted money.
Right, but some of these same fiscal conservatives are the ones saying this needs to be in a military court, and we're hearing, frankly, a lot of family members of the victims repeat this, saying, this is a war crime. This should be held in a war court.
Well, it's interesting. Abu Hamza just was extradited from England back to the U.S. along with 4 others. They're being prosecuted in federal court. The president told Mark Bowden, the author of Black Hawk Down, in a recent interview that had bin Laden been captured instead of killed, he was going to be prosecuted in federal court. So our federal courts are the gold standard. I mean, that's what we hold up to the world as the gold standard. Clearly, the military commissions aren't. So this notion that these are war crimes that have to be prosecuted in front of a war court clearly isn't borne out by the facts of the hundreds of other cases we prosecuted in our federal courts.
So why then, I guess let's peel away sort of the messaging and the fear-mongering, and let's try and get to the bottom of why these are then held in military courts.
I think by and large it's the embarrassment over what we did and trying to keep that quiet. I mean, I was on a panel last week here in D.C. with one of the senior members of the prosecution team who said, oh, these trials are going to be a new era in transparency. But as you've seen today, I mean, if transparency is a 40-second sound delay and reporters tweeting from Guantanamo, then these are extraordinarily transparent. But the public can't attend, and like I said, the government can pick and choose what it wants to blank out. And I think that's the purpose of the military commissions, is to try to avoid embarrassment over things that we did in some cases a decade ago.
I guess just last question for you is, what do you think will be the long-term impact of this trial?
Well, assuming it eventually gets done. I mean, today is just a preliminary hearing on motions. Last I heard, there were in excess of 150 motions. I think if anyone envisions these trials being over and done anytime soon, that's doubtful. But I think when they are over and done, if they're done in a military commission, they could be the most perfect trials in the history of mankind, and the world is still going to look at it with a skeptical eye. Because for a decade now, we've said over and over, this time we got it right and this time it's justice. And we're on about the 4th or 5th version of that now.
Absolutely. Certainly a very interesting case that, as you say, will be going on for quite a long time. Colonel Morris Davis, retired Air Force attorney and a professor now at Howard University School of Law. Thanks so much.
Sure.